man. Like, Blizzard, you guys need to add a 5th body option to the Dracthyr that is even buffer stat.
Yeah.
I don't know what... You need more muscles. Seemingly, muscles are really what the people want. But with the Dracthyr, it's kind of interesting how it maybe intersects with, like, internet culture. Because the Dracthyr have now just turned into, oh, that's all for scaly perverts only.
Well,
Not saying, by the way, if you're in the furry community or whatever, not saying you're a pervert, but I'm saying that's almost like the sort of ad hominem or whatever that's just being used to, like, you know, kind of go, blah! This is for the pervs from California. It's like as if that is now kind of like the base reaction. And then it's kind of funny because you actually log into the game and you play around with them. And like their character creator is like super in depth with like loads of options. Like you can make a Dracthyr that's a bit of a Chad. Like you can give it the equivalent of a chiseled jaw, like whatever that means for a snout person. And you know, you can give it like the buff thing and give it all the horns and shit. And it does look like it could hold a 2-handed sword and kill you. Of course it can't because it can't be a warrior. So, you know, there's that. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting.
Well, that gets into something I think is a little bit interesting, right? Where it's about positioning of your product. It's about positioning your product. It's about winning the culture war in the sense of the individual thing. And that's kind of where Blizzard have really, really badly lost. And it's even the case of, I think people are so don't want the Dracthyr. So like they're maybe this isn't the right word to use, but like ideologically opposed to the Dracthyr.
Oh no, that's the right word to use.
Yeah,
you've got it.
It's a very strong word.
It's now like an ideology thing almost.
Yeah, so people are ideologically opposed to the Dracthyr. So no amount of, you know, give will actually change that.
That's it, yeah.
Unless it's literally perfect. So body type 4, that means nothing.
It means nothing
because
to them,
people look and go, yeah, but the neck though, the neck muscle isn't quite there. Oh, but the face still looks very thin and light.
You try to make them skinny, you perverts.
Yeah, and people are going, oh, it's just twink scalies, and you're like, that is, there's probably a creative intent there from people doing it, because that's how the world is these days. It just seems to be that. seems to be there are people who like twink scalies, and they're working at all forms of game studios now. But it's like you just kind of get that there, and that's the overriding principle. It doesn't matter how much they go, well, these are magicians, these are mages, these are lithe agile spellcasters. That's what they are by design. You can see that in some of their animations. You can see that in like their general toolkit. You're like, yeah, this is basically perfect. This is like, that completely logically makes sense. But logically having an answer doesn't matter if the experience of the user is not emotionally sound.
It's like a massive emotional experience. It's quite funny, and even that like seeing the Zero Strand, I've seen those comments that are like, just it's really funny because to me, I go to the Zero Strand and it's like, oh yeah, the art style of WoW has always been gorgeous. Look at this, it's really gorgeous. Wow, imagine Northrend looked like this. This looks incredible. But people are like, no, there are up-to-date art assets. Shit. It's like, it's very interesting. It just is very interesting to me, I suppose.
It's just what happens when you lose your audience. And you completely have zero trust whatsoever. It's a kind of case of like, it doesn't matter what they do unless it's perfect. And it won't be perfect because people are primed to believe it won't be perfect. And I'm not necessarily saying that what they have done is perfect, what they have done is good or anything, or is bad. I'm not making any like judgment on it as a quality thing. It's more, you see this a lot of the time. You see it with certain games around the rest of the industry that always get it right. You see games come out and the overwhelming opinion is, this is good. Nothing you can say will change that. Nothing they will do, unless it's catastrophic, will change that. It is just like carved into stone. The emotional experience is good. And then there's the opposite. Like, do you ever see a world where Halo Infinite is lauded as a massive success without a miracle? Probably not, because the overwhelming PR is like the part of people's brains who experience, who are paying attention to the games media and stuff. In their head, there will be that switch of Halo Infinite. The initial like anchored principle is Halo Infinite bad. Halo Infinite has been chiseled into live service nightmare, and getting that back is just going to be very, very difficult. Very, very difficult.
I've just thought it's fascinating because it's also quite weird. I think it's like, how do you say this without coming across like the most up yourself, looking down at other people asshole in the fucking planet. Because I know that this is just like YouTube commenters, and it's not really you guys, or most people, but I think people really struggle sometimes to deal with a decently complex issue. Like, the really good example is Dracthyr can be fun, dragon riding can be fun, Azure Strand can be a really nice zone, and that doesn't invalidate any criticism that any one of the influencery people have made about World of Warcraft in the last 10 years. Like, that's the thing. Where do you think it goes?
Well, it goes, to be completely honest, I think it's probably going into a case of Blizzard will go super hard on the audience they want. Everything about that dev team, and this is kind of not really, this isn't really a statement regarding them, but like, they definitely seem the sort to go, we will make, and this, I would absolutely praise this in games, and I sort of will here, we have an audience in mind. We have a creative product we want to make, and we're going to make that. And that's evident with the Dracthyr, where you can imagine in the office, you know, because they're all intelligent enough people working in there, otherwise they wouldn't be working at, you know, and be able to work on video games at Blizzard. That's not going to be easy. They're going to be smart enough people. And they're like, there will be people in there going, are you sure we should make these twink skillies? I have a funny feeling a lot of our audience maybe not be a super big fan of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because this game, you say Warcraft, and people who grew up with Warcraft
you think of fucking Duratan.
Yeah, they will think Elite Tauren Chieftain. They will think, you know, maybe not the correct choice of language, but was it Corpse Grinder or Cannibal Corpse? Whichever one had the...
or the BlizzCon incident.
Yeah, the BlizzCon incident. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, the audience has matured a little bit past being too derogatory, but the same core of like heavy metal 80s stuff is like so kind of there to a lot of people. Some of it a little bit melted over time. And then people became like super fans of like Arthas. And, you know, to be fair, there's definitely a difference between here's an orc wearing very little, a couple straps of leather, red shoulder blades, and a big axe. There's a difference between that and here's a human male in full plate, killing a load of, doing the right thing, even though it's a bit wrong. There's a bit of a difference there, but it's still like heavy. It's still that kind of metal aesthetic. And the game's different now. The creative team are different now. They're moving it differently, which means to me, I think it's going to be a substantially smaller game overall in terms of how many people want to play it. And that's just going to be like, that's what the creative team have decided. They've clearly done that. Otherwise they wouldn't greenlight this.
I don't know. I have a feeling there's too much at stake.
I don't know.
But that said, the Dracthyr were greenlit 2 years ago. No, they were... what am I on about? They were greenlit way more than 2 years ago. Maybe 3.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's be real. Shadowlands, or the Dragonflight was in development, like active development, like making shit for it, whenever Shadowlands came out. This expansion's been in development for ages. That's how it is with WoW expansions. Yeah. So, maybe that... you know, it's like almost a bit of a holdover from that era, in a way. I wouldn't be surprised. But Matt, you're totally right. Like I think anyone in the room would have been able to say Twink Scalies are definitely not the fit for this audience. Now the thing is, they are the fit for the WoW audience that uses Twitter.
Yeah.
They are the fit for that side. Are they a fit for... I mean, look, you look at, say, an indie game being announced, and you look at its Twitch response, and it'll just be all kek W's and Pepes and Peepos and ZZZZZZZZ.
Or if you go to YouTube, it'll be L, because that's a loss for the...
Yeah. And then you go to Twitter, and it will be, oh my god, so cute. I can't even... Oh my god, I'm going to die. I would die for that. Oh! Yeah. Like, totally different audiences. And I just have a bit of a feeling... that the WoW team culturally is significantly more towards Twitter there.
You can tell that at a glance.
Than they're going to be towards, Twitch or, some of the other places. I'm not saying that to be disparaging about any one of those 3 websites and the people who use them, but I think we undoubtedly know that those are definitely fucking different. They're different slices of audience. Yeah. That much is for sure. And ultimately, a lot more motherfuckers on Twitch. A lot more motherfuckers on Twitch and YouTube than Twitter.
Yeah,
it's just Twitter. You feel every person who's on there because it's tweets.
Yeah, whereas Twitch is more just each individual voice becomes a wave, and it's very easy to tune a wave out. Especially with the speed of how chat goes. And because it's so low stake as opposed to Twitter being ostensibly... Now, I remember Twitter a long time ago. I don't know how this happened, but now Twitter is like a high stakes engagement thing where it was... Oh, there was someone in Twitter... it might have been Porter Gage? I think it might have been Porter Gage was talking about like how it used to be whenever you're online and you were young. For people who are in their mid-20s or late 20s or early 30s, whatever else, it'll be like, online, you are a human vaguely surfacing with the internet. Don't let anything from your real life leak on there. Don't exist online.
Yeah.
You separate yourself, you leave yourself in the chair, and then you and the internet's a different person. Which is why, and a lot of this was to do with like child safety back in the day, where, you know, you're 13 and your parents are like, don't fucking tell anyone you're a 13-year-old online. There's weird people online. And to this day, they're very right. Everyone's fucking weird online. But that very quickly eroded and became identitarian on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then Twitter's now like a really high stakes environment. So everyone's there and fully like engaged, like we are full people. And you see that there, but you don't see it anywhere else. And even on there, you see the people who are more likely to be negative are the people with low stakes. You'll see, as they used to be called, you know, egg accounts. That's where a lot of the negativity would come from. So you see an egg account going, fuck this stupid skilly twink shit. Then you see someone else who has a fully fledged profile and has 20,000 tweets over the past 10 years. And you kind of instinctively weigh their opinion higher because they're a person as opposed to a nothing. But they're both still individuals and you know nothing about their investment beyond that. That egg account could be someone who's played World of Warcraft for, well, not 20 years, but you know, 17 years. But it's impossible to know that. And that's the thing where it's all about the experience of the individual voice. And the individual voice is still an individual voice, even if it's part of a wave.
Yeah.
And that's where you look at Twitch and go, oh, that's all negativity. But you easily go, oh, well, it's just Twitch. It's just Twitch. I get the emotional experience of positivity from this part. So you'll instinctively or like literally by intent, you'll start to cater towards the place where you get the good feel, as opposed to having to drown out the bad feelings. And that's not even like, oh, it's just children who can't like be mature enough to handle like emotional intelligence or their own feelings. It's literally like just that's how people will move overall on average across a population. That's how it'll go. Unless your heart is black and you go on Twitch and be mean, which isn't true, by the way. There's usually like people who have an individual voice as part of a wave that's very negative aren't necessarily negative people. That's one thing you notice very well when you see a really wholesome Twitch chat, or you see a moment where the same Twitch chat that's kind of low stakes invested, able to throw stuff across. And you can't tell if they're like, yeah, I actually really hate this, or just going, people are throwing shit, I'll throw shit too. It's really hard to tell the difference, but it's like really super important. And I think that's the point where you need to be very wary of your audience becoming the vocal minority. They're not literally the vocal minority, but the amplification of the emotionality of their voice comes from them being high stakes involved people online. So it kind of ends up being there's 10 people shouting as loud as 1,000 people. Even though the 1,000 people are also talking.
Yeah, and that kind of like dominates the culture and stuff. Yeah, it's like it has just been fascinating. I have never seen an initial testing wave quite like this one. I just said it's a shame we didn't get a tank with the Dracthyr. A freaking bulky dragon that could hold the line is cool. It's a shame they just see them as casters. That's also like totally a part of it. And in my Dracthyr customization video, I think it's coming out tomorrow. It'll get 3 views. Like the one thing I say is it would be cool if in the next expansion they add a body type 5 that's more bulky, and then they actually expand, you know, other classes onto it or something like that. So you can, you know, be a warrior, be a paladin, be that kind of thing, you know? Yeah, because it's like, what is the fantasy of a big dragon in people's heads? And Blizzard definitely knew that the thing that they were trying to deliver was not what most people who are Warcraft fans would think of, especially given the dragons that they themselves had put in the game for years.
And also, that is entirely their prerogative.
Yeah.
But is it the right business decision? It depends on their goals. So is your goal as the development team of World of Warcraft? I was about to like try to either pick out Ian or John Haidt as like more like kind of leadership over the creative side of it, but they actually don't have a creative director publicly yet, right?
I'm not sure. I don't think
so. So in terms of creative direction of the game, there's no one you can go, creative director, you're the creative one. But it's like their goal seems to be something they creatively enjoy doing and think their fans will like, or they, you know, think they will like it and people will also like it. So that's the problem of, do you just say, well, they want a successful, profitable game, so they should not be creative and instead, or limit their own creativity and their own input and make what people want? Because then that's soulless. But then if you don't agree with what color their soul is, then you won't like it anyway. So that's the awkward thing where,
because there's getting weird with it, but also it's like, what is your job?
Yeah,
it is to serve the people in a way.
Yeah, and that's where the problem comes. If can you ostensibly do both? That's where it's really difficult to ride the line, and it'll be a long time before they can. Hopefully it's not very long, but they need to get that kind of vibe back. Whereas before, World of Warcraft was just a free win because it was just, I hate to say it, but it was definitely a little bit just generic geek shit.
Yeah,
and it worked like.
Yeah, it was. It had a very basic fundamental appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah.